See, Kevin Stefanski, much like in a similar way, ironically enough, Baker Mayfield, they occupy a specific place in Cleveland Browns lore. Specifically, new Cleveland Browns lore. We're talking about the history of the team since they came back from reactivation in 1999. They occupy a special place. Baker Mayfield was the first real shot at a franchise quarterback Cleveland had, right? Was the starter for the longest consecutive period of any quarterback since 1999. And you can argue the most successful, consistent starter over a 3 or 4 year period that the Browns have had. Not to say that that's the bar of success in the NFL, but that's just the bar that Baker Mayfield cleared in Cleveland. The same can be said for Kevin Stefanski. He is the guy who has been here as a head coach the longest since 1999. He's the guy who's had the most success, the most playoff berths, the most 11-win seasons, has won Coach of the Year twice. He's the first real coach and real coach run that most Cleveland Browns fans who were born before or slightly before or after the turn of the millennium are familiar with, right? Like he is that to a generation of Browns fans. He's the first head coach that we've seen be here for more than 4 years. So he's going to occupy a space in Cleveland Browns lore, which means he's not going to go away. Much like Baker Mayfield has never went away, Kevin Stefanski and things said about Kevin in his time in Cleveland here, they're always going to register with Browns fans, and Browns fans are always going to be interested in what's going on with Kevin. The same way, for the last 4 years, Browns fans have been interested in what's going on with Baker Mayfield, whether they're rooting for him or not, whether you're a fan of Kevin or not, whether you're a fan of Baker or not. This has been a constant thread in Cleveland Browns fandom. So there was another clip from a podcast we talked about. I think it's Fourth and South on the Volume. I think this is Jarvis Landry and Leonard Fournette, their podcast together. It was interesting how they talked about Deshaun Watson when they talked about him, because I thought that there was a clear level of delusion kind of in how they were speaking about it. Like they were speaking about them teaming up with Deshaun Watson as if it was going to create this super team in Atlanta, when we know the history of all of these guys' career after 2022. It's straight to the dumpster. And that's no disrespect to anything they accomplished before that, but like being realistic, it's probably not going to be the case that, you know, him, Deshaun Watson, Jarvis Landry, Leonard Fournette going to create some kind of super team. So they had more to say about things that were related to Cleveland, right? I don't know why Kevin Stefanski got brought up, but Kevin did get brought up. And Leonard Fournette had some choice words for Kevin Stefanski, which is interesting because I don't think those two have ever interacted.
You know, picking on the coach, what's his name again?
Kevin Stefanski.
That shit bothers me, right? You know, even the shit he had going on with Shador, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you have a guy there that could be your franchise maker, that can change the organization, you know, and I'm not sure what was going on in his brain or why he didn't want to play him or whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter. But I have a problem with coaches like that. Like, to me, his resume is not good to me at all. Just being real.
Yeah.
And he gets another shot at coaching where, you know, it was guys like me and you who have great-ass resumes, right? And didn't get another shot or not playing at all. So when I see shit like that, man, that shit had me hot.
Yeah.
So he'd definitely be one of those coaches I would not ever want to play for.
Ever.
All right, so that's the first part of this, right? We'll go through this video as we go. It seems like Leonard's issue with Kevin has nothing to do with Kevin. It has everything to do with like how he feels about how the league chewed him up and spit him out. And look, there's a grievance to be had there. He plays the position of running back. No position gets turned over and churned in and out more than the running back position. No position gets made disposable quite like the running back position. And if you look at Leonard Fournette's career, he did go through a spectacular rise and fall, right? Like, he was such a good running back coming out of LSU that he was valued as a top 10 pick, which is rare for a running back. And then his career, you know, it wasn't what people thought it was going to be in Jacksonville. He goes to Tampa Bay, kind of reignites things. And then his career kind of tails off around 30, like a lot of running backs' careers kind of tailed off. And maybe he feels like there were some more productive years left for him in the league. And he didn't get that opportunity, but then he sees somebody like Kevin Stefanski, who he has deemed not worthy, get more opportunities to coach. That to me feels more like I'm not even trying to be shady here. Like, I think this is just literally describing what he just said. That is textbook jealousy, right? I don't know if that really is a reflection on Kevin. And look, if you're looking for criticism of Kevin to do his job, I think there are plenty out there to have. But if you look at Kevin's resume, yeah, he was going to get another job. That was one of the most obvious things in the world, that if the Browns fired Kevin, he was going to get another job. It was something that we had discussed before he even got fired in Cleveland. Like, we had long discussions during the season of like, hey, I think Kevin needs to get fired. It is awkward because Kevin is going to get another job somewhere, and that's not a situation that Cleveland's ever been in. But I think what we're seeing in Cleveland, what Kevin has demonstrated, is that he's not willing to change, and I think the Browns need change, so we got to get rid of Kevin. That was the discussion, at least here in Cleveland on my channel. You know, that was what was well known. Kevin was going to get another job. He's a 2-time coach of the year, which I understand to some people in the audience that means nothing to. To Leonard Fournette, clearly that means nothing to. But to the rest of the NFL, it does mean something too, right? And he had 2 11-win seasons in a place in Cleveland that before he got there had never had an 11-win season since they had come back from an expansion team in 1999, which is significant, right? If you demonstrate you can have success where others have failed, people are going to put more stock into that success than they would if you had it somewhere that had a track record of success and you just kept it going. You know, fact is, there are 2 11-win seasons in Cleveland Browns history since 1999 and the reactivation of the team. And both of those seasons were under the control of Kevin Stefanski as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. And that bolstered his resume to where he gets a job with the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think there's anything crazy about that. I don't think it's wild that Kevin got a job again. Now, he did touch on the whole Shedeur thing, and I get so exhausted talking about the Shedeur thing because, again, there's no middle ground here to be had with Shedeur. There's no ability to be sensible with it. But Leonard talks about Shedeur as if he's already proven he's a franchise quarterback, and if the Browns were just suppressing him. And I guess that's the common narrative around those who are really in the Sanders camp here. It's just not the reality, though. Like, Shedeur was not good enough to demonstrate himself to be a franchise caliber quarterback. Like, that's not the world that we're living in at all. You're hoping that maybe with more time in the offseason, he shows up this year, improves on what he did last year, and demonstrates that he could be a quality starting quarterback solution and maybe even build his way as his career goes on into being a franchise quarterback. But we're not at the he's a franchise quarterback part, and judging Kevin and how he handled Shedeur as if Shedeur was demonstrated to be this franchise quarterback right off the bat, I think is very unfair. Again, million things you could criticize on Kevin. I wanted Kevin fired by the end of the year, but there's also with Kevin a lot of things that people put on him that have nothing to do with him, that have everything to do with bullshit outside of his control. Which makes talking about him difficult because there's valid criticisms. He should have gotten fired. I stand behind that 100%. I think he should have gotten fired. And as of right now, like I don't think the Browns have any remorse about it. And I think that's fine. But also, a lot of the stuff that people like egg on Kevin about, that's not what got him fired, you know? It was simple. He just did not evolve the offense, and he was not interested in evolving the offense, and he was too set in his ways. Now, his ways can be successful, but the Browns, being a young team that wants to develop, need somebody there that's more adaptable. So they went with Todd Monken over him. The Falcons feel like they can win with what Kevin likes to do. So they hired Kevin. It makes sense. We don't have to trash him on his way out or act like he was like this terrible coach. He just wasn't the fit for what the Browns needed going forward. Let's hear what Jarvis has to say, because I think it's a little bit more interesting because, like, again, Leonard Fournette, whatever his opinion is of Kevin Stefanski, from a player perspective, it's not going to be as valuable as, like, Jarvis's, right? Because Jarvis actually played under Kevin for at least a year. Again, Leonard has no experience under Kevin. So let's hear what Jarvis has to say.
So he'd definitely be one of those coaches I would not ever want to play for.
Ever. Man, I would say, you know what? I would say, like, being in Cleveland and playing there, you know, he was cool to be around. It's like you say, it's like it just almost felt like, you know, as much as he knew what he was doing, right, he really maybe didn't, right? And I think that, like, sometimes, you know, some of these coaches or most of these coaches get put in a position too soon, right?
True.
You know, they have success as a position coach, right? Mm-hmm. And then they get thrown into this head coaching role where, you know, you expect most of these coaches that's younger to be more personable, right? More relatable with their players. Yeah. And in most cases, it just doesn't work out that way, right? And I know, like, my time in Cleveland, especially in the beginning, man, it was great. Like, he ended up winning Coach of the Year. You know, we ended up going to the playoffs. And then for some reason, then after, bro, it just kind of felt like, you know, the spark between the connection between the players and the coaches just kind of started to dim out, right? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if he'd be a great coach in the league, right? But I do think he knows a lot about offense, right? I think, you know, I don't know how much he is involved into the analytical side of things, but I know in Cleveland that was a huge part. So, you know, I think that played a part in some of the decisions that he may have been forced to make, even with the Shedeur Sanders thing, right? Yeah. Either forced to make or persuaded to make, you know what I mean? Yeah. But we'll see, right? Last year in Cleveland, you know, he's a coach of the year. I think he's 2-time coach of the year, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, Atlanta will be another good indicator about, you know, where his, you know, coaching career is headed, you know, because that team as well is a team that's struggling, need to find somebody to fill that head coaching position and that quarterback position too.
Much more diplomatic answer from Jarvis Landry. You can see him at the beginning of that clip, like trying to like figure out how does he kind of split the middle here between what Leonard Fournette says and what he wants to say here. It's interesting. One of the things, I think one of the best points Jarvis brought up was a lot of times people get plucked to be head coaches because they show promise as an offensive coordinator. And because having somebody to run your offense long term is such a high premium thing in the NFL, right? It's very valuable that you would want to bring in somebody who has demonstrated potential on offense as far as coordination goes. That means that a lot of times people get plucked from being offensive coordinators and put in the position to be a head coach before they're ready. There are some lessons they need to learn in flexibility, in player management that they just have not had the time to learn because everybody just wants that offensive guy, right? In one way, it's like the Sean McVay effect. Before Sean McVay got hired, like hiring a coach who's 35, 40, that was unheard of. But now it's what everybody wants to do is get the new Sean McVay. And there's a reason why Sean McVay was an outlier to begin with, you know, because he was uniquely qualified at a young age in a way that most guys his age usually aren't. Like by the time Sean McVay got hired, he was like 5th year being an offensive coordinator. He was super young, but he had the experience of a 45-year-old, right? Kevin got hired. He had 2 years of being an offensive coordinator under his belt, maybe like a year and a half, actually. He was interim. And then I think he spent the whole year as offensive coordinator. He got hired very early into his career to be a head coach. And I think some of that showed itself in Cleveland because, yeah, he does have promise as an offensive mind. And when he's doing what he knows, he's really good. And when he has the pieces to do what he knows, he's pretty good. And that's how you get the 2020 season. That's how you get the 2023 season. Both of those years heavy assists from the coaching, right? Like, this wasn't, the Browns were just so talented. It was inevitable. They won 11 games. Both the years they won 11 games, one, nobody saw it coming before the season, and two, it was obvious that coaching played a large role in that season. You know, like, again, Kevin's not here. I stand behind him getting fired. But you got to give him his flowers for what he accomplished. And I think those 2 seasons demonstrated that, hey, when he does have the tools to do what he knows what to do, he can be very good. The issue with Kevin is that because he spent so little time as an offensive coordinator, he didn't have a breadth of education, right? There is a depth of education and a breadth of education. If you ever have had this conversation around like college and learning whether you should go into a trade or whether you should consider a 4-year university, right? A trade's going to offer you a deep education in one shallow subject. So if you want to learn how to be a AC repair person, well, then you're going to learn a lot about AC repair or electrician or whatever trade that you choose to go into. If you want to go to a 4-year university, yes, you have a major, but what you're getting at a 4-year university is a breadth of education, which is a wider range of education other than just specifically what you're majoring for. So that's why you have language credits that you need in college. It's why you need to take a bio class, even if you're not a bio major or minor, right? It's why you need to take a sciences classes and an arts class, because what they're offering is a breadth of education. They want to give you a well-rounded education instead of a specific education in a specific area, right? That's the depth of education versus the breadth of education argument when it comes to post-secondary education, right? So after high school, that is one of the bigger arguments that you'll see had around that time. You know, a lot of people, especially when I was younger, like the trade thing was really booming. Like a lot of people wanted to just do a trade. But the issue with the trade school education is that if you can't become an electrician, if you cannot, get a good union job or something like that as an electrician or find a good gig there, then you don't really have anything else to fall back on. Whereas, like, if you go to a 4-year university, yeah, you might not do what you're majoring in, but you might have learned enough from what you got your degree in to be able to pivot to something similar or related. There's a wider breadth there that you could go after, which when the job market gets as complex as it has in recent years, might become more valuable. I'm not here to tell you which way you should go on that one. We kind of strayed far away from the point, but there is an idea of breadth versus depth, and I want to explain that difference. What Kevin Stefanski has, in my opinion, is a depth of education. He has a really deep knowledge of how to do the Kubiak stuff, right? I think when it comes to getting in that Kubiak bag, he's one of the best. What Kevin did not have, because he just didn't have the experience, is a breadth of education. So when it came to do more or do different things than just the Kubiak style, Kevin struggled massively because he just did not have the breadth there. He had a great depth of education there, not a great breadth. What the hope is with him in Atlanta is that he doesn't have to test the breadth of his education because he can just do what he knows. I'm going to do the Kubiak thing. The problem with that idea is that over time, you're going to have to adjust. No matter what, you're going to have to adjust. You can't just do one thing forever and stay in the same place. So best case scenario, you become a Larry Brown-like figure where Larry Next Town Brown is what Jalen Rose used to call him, right? They had beef back in the day. But Larry Brown was a guy back in the day in the NBA who would go to a team for a couple of years, have a couple good seasons, get fired, and then go to another team. Next Town Brown, right? He'd be good for a little while, but not there for a long time because he did one thing really well. That's kind of where Kevin's sitting at. He does that Kubiak style really well, but once you need to adjust, it becomes a problem. And I think Jarvis kind of hits on that. Like, this is what happens. When you pluck these guys after 1 or 2 years of being an offensive coordinator, they don't have a great breadth of education. Think about Todd Monken. Todd Monken came up in the air raid style system. Then he learned more about the spread. And then he started doing some of that Greg Roman pistol stuff. So you think about the breadth of education that Todd Monken has, it's massive. That's what made him appealing to the job for Cleveland. It's like, oh, of course this guy knows how to adjust. He's ran an air raid, he's ran a spread, he's ran a pistol-heavy, run-first, RPO-heavy offense with counter-run elements. He has a great breadth of education here. Like, if you need Todd Monken to adjust to what personnel is around him, and that's like a big buzzword, right? Whenever people are like, what are you going to run? What kind of offense you're going to run? Every coach says, we're going to run what people are good at. We're going to tailor this system to what we have. Well, here's the thing about tailoring the system to what you have. It's real hard to do if you as the coach don't have a lot of different things you could pull from to tailor that system. If all you know is the Kubiak system, you're not tailoring the system to anybody. You're running the Kubiak system. But for somebody like Todd Monken, tailoring that system is a little bit easier because he can pull from 5 or 6 different offensive concepts that he spent 10 years learning each individually. Breadth of education, depth of education. And this kind of shows itself because what did Kevin Stefanski have? Only 2 years of offensive coordinating experience before he got hired. Less than 2 years. Todd Monken, over a decade. Not to say that Todd's going to be better than Kevin, but this is why Todd was more appealing in 2026 to coach the team than Kevin Stefanski was to the Cleveland Browns. But I thought that was an interesting conversation between Jarvis Landry and Leonard Fournette about Kevin Stefanski, what he does well, what he doesn't. We know that his communication style, for some people, it worked really well. For other people, it didn't. I don't think that was the biggest deal with Kevin Stefanski, if we're being honest. I think if he were able to adjust better and create more successful offenses, some of the smaller stuff wouldn't have become a big issue for him. But the lack of success on offense allowed the small stuff to become big stuff, because when you aren't executing, then everything's on the table for why you aren't successful. But that's an interesting look back at that whole conversation and in between those two. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.